What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, part of the All-City Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who just celebrated his favorite holiday of the season, Halloween. Legs, it's good to see you. How did it go? How was trick-or-treating this year with the little one?
Trick-or-treating was great, man. It was a little bit of a scrambled day because I had to fly back from Oklahoma City. Not the easiest place to get home from, not direct flight. So I kind of got back to the house at like 4, scrambled, put on Mr. Potato Head costume, and off we went as Toy Story. So it was great night. My son, man, he turns 3 in a few weeks, and I think that's the latest he's ever gone to bed, man. We could not get him home. It was just he just wanted to keep going, and so finally we just said, you know what, I just let him stay out. What's one night? So it was a great night though, man.
You only get, so you know this, but you only get so many Halloweens, man. I've only got, my kids are 8 and 9, so I think I've only got like 4 or 5 more of these before they're like ready to go out on their own. Don't want mom and dad around. So definitely soak it up. We got a jam-packed show today though, man. Every time we take a day off, Legs, I feel like everything happens, and we have to talk about all of it. So last night, Bucks Grizzlies is the game. We haven't talked Grizzlies this year, so we're going to talk about them. Also want to get your take on the Milwaukee Bucks, who are unfortunately one of the storylines out of the gate this year with how rough they're playing. But you also had notes for the Mavericks and Luka Doncic, the Houston Rockets, who are very fun to watch. The Suns got a big win last night. We're going to talk about them. And then the Orlando Magic lose Paolo Banchero. Get some notes on you on Victor Wembanyama. So we have more in today's show than we have had on a show all year. So let's just dive right into it. The Bucks Grizzlies. We picked this game because, you know, this show, we don't want it to be 1 or 2 teams. We want to pass the ball around, cover the entire league. There's interesting storylines everywhere. But the Bucks and the Grizzlies last night was not a great game. It was a great first half, thanks in large part to Ja Morant, who I thought had maybe the greatest highlight mixtape in one half of basketball in the first half that I've seen in years. He had 10 highlights in the first half, included an alley-oop while seated on the ground. That was absolutely spectacular. And you thought maybe coming back, he'd have a little bit of rust. You know, what's it like? We missed so much time. 26 points, 10 rebounds, 14 assists in 29 minutes. I thought he was unbelievable yesterday. What did you think of his performance?
He was spectacular. And the thing I was thinking about while I was watching him, you know, look, there are guys that are highly productive every night. There are, you know, top players in this league. That's one thing. It's a whole nother thing to be that entertaining when you play. The flair that he plays with is special. I mean, and he had most of what he did of the highlight reel stuff wasn't his score. Ridiculous dunk on somebody, because he's had enough of those throughout his career where you just can't even believe what you just saw a guy that size do and elevate like that. These were mostly passes we're talking about. A lot of no looks. The one you're talking about, seated really almost at the 3-point line, sitting down with 3-4 defenders like in front of him, and had the presence to throw a lob. And not only did Aldama catch it and dunk it normally, he caught it and reverse dunked it. And Adam, I'm going to go off the limb right now and say, we might go the entire season and that will still be the pass of the year. Man. I don't know how you top that. Like Luka had one, he's already had a couple, but one in particular, you know, he threw a ball over his head from right under the rim on the left side all the way to the right corner to PJ Washington for a 3 right through Victor Wembanyama's arms. It was, you know, amazing. Some luck there, I think, involved as well that Wembanyama didn't hit it. And I thought, okay, man, that's going to be tough to beat. I really firmly believe that we might play the rest of the season, and that might still be my favorite pass that I'm going to see all season. So the entertainment value on top of being a nightmare for defenses with the way he breaks you down and what he can do and the way he finds you when you react to his penetration. He was spectacular last night, man. The league missed him. The league missed that another box office guy that you tune in because you're going to see something really special out of Ja Morant pretty much every night. And he delivered last night. And I thought his flair was incredible in the way that he just commanded the game and picked the Bucks apart, particularly in the second quarter.
And once he got going, it was like his confidence was through the roof. You just knew every shot he took, every fast break he was on was going to result in something great. And the seated one, you're right. Basketball players of all, if you grew up in a gym, you've tried it, a seated shot. It's so hard to know how hard to throw it or whatever, because it's like your leverage is gone. He put a pinpoint pass somehow right on the money. It's almost as impressive as a shot in many ways how he did it. And yet it wasn't my favorite highlight of the night. My favorite highlight was an offensive rebound he grabbed, goes behind the back and tightrope walks, and then throws a little touch pass to, I think it was to Aldama. And it's just like, watching that play where I think every other player, literally every other player in the NBA would have fallen out of bounds or thrown the ball away or something. It made me think, I think he has the best body control of anybody in the NBA. And there's some great athletes, Anthony Edwards. There's some great guys who have incredible body control. But when you put together both his athleticism, but also his ability to maneuver through tight spaces at full speed, his body control is something else. It's something to behold. And he missed a year, comes back. That didn't go away at all.
No, and look, sometimes that's frightening for Grizzlies fans because he's taken some pretty insane falls from outrageous heights. And he's, like we said, he's not, there's not a lot to him in terms of weight and the way that he explodes and how high he gets in the air. It doesn't take a lot of contact where he has one of those awkward landings. So that it's always scary when he takes off like that. But, I'm going to tell you something, Adam, like when we talk about the best whatever, in the league and name a skill, best rebounders, best shooters, best ball handlers, best passers. We don't mention Ja Morant in the best passer category. I don't think. And I think he needs to be there because I talk about the flair, but it's not all flair. It's some of the passes that he's delivering with flair are in tight windows and they're delivered right on time. And he's a tremendous lob thrower and he throws it to a number of guys. I mean, Luka might be the best in the league in terms of putting it exactly where it needs to be. But I think Ja's close, man, and he puts it to a number of guys across the board, which is hard to do. Sometimes, like Luka has that combination with Gafford and Lively pretty good. But, like, I feel like Ja Morant can throw it to anybody on his roster, and that's harder to time that up because you don't get that many opportunities with guys up and down your roster, but he delivers it perfectly. So I think he needs to be included when we start talking about like the best passers in terms of creating offense when something doesn't look. He finds a way to create something out of that.
Legs, I think your mic might have come out. The wire there might have come out there for a second. But I agree with you about his passing. I don't know if I would put him in the best, in that top tier, but maybe he is. Honestly, maybe I'm not giving him credit because you are right that last night he had a skip pass to the corner that was just right on point. He had a fast break layup where it looked like he was going to go up for the layup and at the last second dropped it off. And it was like he went up just to draw the defender, dropped it off just so smoothly. And then obviously the seated pass, the full court outlet pass he had. I mean, he just had everything going last night from a passing and scoring perspective. And it only took him a half to get all of that done. And the game was over at halftime. The other guy I want to talk about, though, is your guy. Both you and I had our guys coming into the year. We've had some good games from our guys so far. But Scottie Pippen Jr., I have to do the Shaq meme. I was not familiar with your game. That guy's a winning player. He plays unbelievable defense. He just seems to be in the right spot all the time. Gets a hand, deflects passes, offensive rebounds, what have you, defends like unbelievably well. And then offensively, he's such a good connector. He had several big connecting plays, including when they started to try to trap, they want to cover for Dame Lillard. So they're going to try to trap Ja Morant on ball. They could just release it to him and he could go and play point guard 4-on-3 and make the right play. I was so impressed with him. And I see what you were seeing in him. I thought he had a great game.
He really did. And Adam, he's had 4 games. I think 4 games out of 6 to start the year. He's been in double figures. And he's playing, he's a backup guard. He's a combo guard, but he's more like a point guard the way he plays, but he could score. He had 16 last night, played great, 16 points, only 1 assist. He's had 2 games this year with double doubles off the bench. scoring and assisting. That's very rare in this league. You don't see guys get 10 assists off the bench very often. So Scottie Pippen Jr., I think, he's been really playing well, getting it done. He's a guy I noticed in summer league first, and then I saw him in the preseason. And remember, we talked about some guys I thought could be potentially like breakout guys and cement themselves in rotation. Mentioned his name, and I think he's even been better than actually. So they got themselves a player, man, and he got a guard in their rotation. He's playing 25 minutes a night. And I don't know that they expected that coming out of camp, but that's a lot of heavy guard usage. I mean, like the top guards in the league coming up in that role are playing that amount. So give him credit, man. And look, I think their ceiling's going to come later. I think Josh's still working through probably a lot, having missed so much time, but they are, to me, said it before the year, I'll say it again, I think they could be the biggest wild card in the Western Conference. I really believe that they're not going to be an easy team to play as this season wears on and they get fully healthy and they continue to get better and Ja continues to get more explosive. I think the Grizzlies are a team that you've got to keep an eye on all year. They could end up in the top 4, top 5 in the West. I'm not going to be shocked if that happens.
And they're missing half their roster, it seems. Obviously some of their core players and Smart and Bane, and they're playing guys like Jalen Wells, who, by the way, he's a shooter. He comes in, he knocks down shots. And Santi Aldama, really good for them, including last night, 19-9, and seems to play off of Ja really well. So they're getting contributions from guys you wouldn't expect. And Scottie Pippen Jr. to me maybe is him and Santi Aldama are the standouts to me on that roster where I look at it and I go, those guys are players. Those guys can actually play on a contending team and fill in roles because of all the different things that they do. And Ja Morant, to your point, there's some players who, you have some injuries, you don't know what you're going to get from your team tonight. Ja Morant kind of single-handedly creates stuff because he's so impossible to guard. And I think they're going to be a team that faces injuries all year. But if he is healthy, I think we'll be able to kind of keep him in the hunt. The Milwaukee Bucks, though, are half the story here because as much as the Grizzlies and Ja Morant looked incredible last night, the Bucks looked just as bad. And they gave up. It wasn't in volume. They only gave up 20 transition points, but all the transition points were so bad. They were the type where it was why there was good floor balance. Why didn't you get back? Lob over the top to Santi Aldama. They were miscommunications in transition, guard to guard screens, and they both go off ball and leave a guy open. They seem so out of sorts to me in a way that is frightening. It's not just Middleton to me. That's a team to me that looks like they're so far away from the basics of basketball. And now they're 1-4, and I'm worried, Legs. Are you?
Very, very. And I don't think we're overreacting at all to what we've seen. That was brutal. That was an absolutely brutal performance. And look, Lillard had a rough night. I mean, that's a big part of how they're going to win games. They're going to outscore you with two really star offensive players. He goes 1 for 12. That makes it harder to win. That doesn't excuse giving up 122 points. And I just thought they were listless in transition. I thought they were incredibly predictable offensively, like to the point of boredom. And I see some teams, some nights, I actually have said this about Boston before, as great as they are, sometimes I'm like, okay, man, like drive, kick three, like 8 straight possessions. It's like, okay, man, but they're so good at it. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying, like, in terms of just like mixing it up, right? Sometimes they can fall into that. And that's what I felt about Milwaukee last night. I'm like, this is a tired formula for them. And these guys aren't making shots at the rate that they used to. And actually Lopez is a guy that I think is very inconsistent now. And he actually was 3 for 6 last night. But you look at the 3-point splits on these guys. Gary Trent Jr., 0 for 7. Lillard, 0 for 6. Taurean Prince, 1 for 6. Portis, 1 for 5. I mean, these are key guys. You're asking to make shots. That doesn't even count, take into account Lillard's other 6 misses for Lillard. So it was brutal to watch on both ends of the floor. Their offense was anemic because they couldn't make shots. It's like they're a one-trick pony. It's either Giannis downhill or they're shooting threes. That's what this team is. And then you combine it with what they were doing defensively. It's like we beat them up defensively a lot last year after Doc came in. And they didn't really improve defensively. They were under 500 the last 36 games of the year. They're all banged up, so they get knocked out of the playoffs. It's hard to judge them, and Lillard, Giannis, first year together, and Giannis was hurt. How much can you really judge them? No, now they had a whole offseason. And they had a whole training camp, and they had all kinds of time for Doc and this staff to implement what they want defensively, and they look like that. They've lost to Chicago, Brooklyn,
Yep.
right? They lost to Memphis, who I just said is, a wild card, but they're still only 3-3. Um, they beat Philly without Embiid and Paul George on the opener. That's like nothing to brag about. You look how bad Philly's struggling. So that's not
Yep.
like something that you're hanging over your mantle to win against Philly right now. So you just look at the start to the year. It could not have gone worse for Giannis, for Doc, for this entire team, the way that they have played. And I think last night was rock bottom so far, 5 games in.
I think it was rock bottom too. And the Dame piece of this is huge. I mean, if you tell somebody, all right, Giannis is going to go for 37 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and he's going to shoot 17 of 22, you think, okay, I think the offense went good. And somehow they only have 99 points. And to your point, nobody else can score. And when he was off the court, their defense is abysmal and their offense doesn't get better. Like you say, okay, we have Giannis and we have Dame. We could pair them together and we could split them up. Well, you split it up with Dame on the court without Giannis and just nothing happens. They don't score the basketball. They have such a rough time. And Dame to me looks healthy, but the team as a whole, I hate to play body language doctor 5 games into the season, but you still give them a month. You see what happens. There's always a chance to turn around, but that's not a team to me that looks like they want to turn around or have belief that they're about to turn around. And that to me, more than anything, Middleton could come back, maybe inject some life into them, but they don't seem to have a lot of guys they trust. They don't have guys that are making shots. And Damian Lillard, to me, when I watch him, I just watch him and go, that's not a guy that I think is about to turn the corner, because he doesn't look happy. He doesn't look content in doing the things he's doing for the team right now.
They look joyless. They don't look like they're having any fun. And I don't, listen, winning cures a lot of that. So when you're losing games, it isn't fun in the NBA. But I bet you also, this early in the season, you see teams that are struggling a little bit. They still look like they're playing, with each other and they're having fun in what they're doing, and they're just coming up short, and maybe they'll turn it around. This team didn't look like they were really there mentally last night. And,
Nope.
and I want to bring up a point too, in looking at Lillard's line last night. And I thought about this actually, we'll talk more about Wemby later on. When I watched him the other night, and I said it on the air actually about Wemby, it's some nights you see some guys, star players, struggle. And it really does put in perspective how great some of the guys in this league are that do it every single night, right? And I'm not saying you're not going to have a bad shooting night. Giannis, Jokic, Luka, LeBron, it's Curry, but they're going to be highly productive in one capacity or another, and their fingerprints are all over the game. And I said it about Wemby the other night because he was really a non-factor in that Oklahoma City game. And that's what I said toward the end of the game. He was kind of sitting on the bench. He looked a little bit mopey. And, and I'm saying, well, the lesson learned here is, Victor, it's hard in this league. And you want to be one of the greats. It's really hard to get to that level that you are expected to do it every night and you actually deliver. Like I said, doesn't mean you play great every night or have great shooting nights, but you are producing every night, and the responsibility is squarely on your shoulders to do it. And you watch, a guy like Lillard last night go 1 for 12. I mean, you rarely see that out of the guys I'm talking about. And if they do, if Jokic has one of those nights, he's probably going to have 16 boards, 13 assists, and he's still controlling the game. Same with Giannis. But it's hard, man. And I think I just wanted to give that shout out to the guys, and I'm sure there's other guys I didn't mention just now. You probably would add to that list. But I think those were the top guys that came to mind. The responsibility and the pressure to do it, and the want to do it, and the mental strength to do it every single night. Everybody's expecting it, and you deliver. And I think that, you didn't see that certainly last night out of Damian Lillard. And as a result, like, their team didn't have a chance to win.
The Bucks have 2 games against the Cavs, one at home and one away coming up. The Cavs are undefeated. They're one of the hottest teams out of the gate. Those are 2 tough games for Milwaukee. I don't feel good about it. They get Utah at home. Okay, you should stabilize there. You immediately go to New York on a back-to-back and then play Boston. So 4 of their next 5 games, I would project they lose. And if you talk about a 2-8 start, it's going to be panic time. I think it's already panic time in Milwaukee, but that is a really, really rough setup that they have going for themselves right now, and I don't feel good about them. All right, let's take a break because we got to get some more teams. On the other side, I want to talk about, you have some notes on Luka Doncic and the Rockets game last night. By the way, the Rockets, one of the funnest teams to watch for me personally in the NBA right now. Also, Suns Clippers, and we'll get to Banchero injury and Wembanyama here later on in the show. But first, they say first is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part, it's all done online. That means there's no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever the opportunity presents itself. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code ALLCITY at checkout. You just pay the $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code ALLCITY, all one word, ALLCITY, to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Blue Chew for being our sponsor. Also want to tell you about a very exciting new sponsor for us, HelloFresh. If you guys don't know about HelloFresh, it's absolutely incredible. Farm fresh produce and easy autumn-inspired recipes this time of year delivered right to your door with HelloFresh. They send you a box, like a refrigerated box, of all the ingredients separated nicely into exactly what it is that you need to prepare your meals. And then you cook them. Usually the meals are like 10 to 30 minutes. It's not that long of a, that big of an ordeal. But I like it because it's a nice thing to do. Like sometimes you want just a quick meal. Sometimes you want to actually sit down and have the joy of cooking. Honestly, this is like my weekend routine. I enjoy cooking a nice meal. Do you have, James, by the way, the picture of I put together? I had this one. Look, this is how it comes to you, by the way, on screen. If you're watching, you can see everything separated nicely. The directions have pictures to them. So it's not like even I, who I'm not a chef at all, can't screw this up. And it takes 5-10 minutes of prep work. You cook. And then look at this thing right here. This is a work of art. This is like a andouille sausage and shrimp with like Cajun seasoning. And then look at that. Look at how I plated that thing, man. So proud of myself for this one. Choose meals that match you and your family's lifestyle. So they have fit and wholesome, quick and easy, vegetarian. You'll always find something that you love at HelloFresh. You pick out what you want, and then they send it to your door. And you can obviously you want a couple a week. You want every single meal to be HelloFresh. It's really, really an awesome product that I swear by. So get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/freeNBA. Think about that, 10 meals. What does that cost you and your family if you were going to buy 10 meals? You get 10 free at HelloFresh.com/freeNBA. That's FREENBA. And that's applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/freeNBA. All right. Let's come back here. Segment 2 of the All NBA show. You wanted to talk about the Mavs. I did not catch this game last night. I caught a little bit. I caught the very end of it. I saw Luka was ice cold. He hit a couple threes at the very end, and I thought, oh my God, here it comes. The Mavs are going to eke a win out. But that was not to be. So what did you see in this game that you wanted to discuss?
Real quickly, before I do that, I want to let people know out there, we've been getting HelloFresh in this household for years. It's awesome. I don't cook, man. I like to grill. I'm the griller, the grilling guy. Like I'll do that. I make a ridiculous ribeye on my green egg. That's like that's the kind of stuff. I like to be outside with a beer in my hand grilling. I don't do much in the kitchen. And I can even do that because I know my wife's going away for the weekend. And I'm kind of home by myself, and I'm like, I don't feel like you're just eating crap or whatever. So I'll go ahead and I'll do it. And the instructions are so easy. I just wanted to put that out there, man. Like,
did you see my plate? Did you see that picture that I had?
Yeah, I'm not sure you put that plate together. I'm not sure you put that plate together.
Look at that thing.
I don't know, man. I don't know about the editing process here. You show all the stuff laid out, and then you just show that. I see no pictures of you. I don't see any mincing, slicing, dicing, grating, all that stuff you have to do with the little side things they give you. That a little bit of prep time. I don't know. No, I'm kidding, man. No, it is that easy. I've done it. I'm proof of it, and I don't really go do much at all in the kitchen. That's pretty much all on my wife's show. I just wanted to put that out there because you just mentioned it, and it actually made me hungry looking at that. All right, now let's get into Mavericks. We give Luka a lot of love on this show. I give Luka a lot of love. I've picked him to be the MVP of the league this year. My preseason prediction. Everybody knows how I was talking about the Mavs in the second half of last year after the trading deadline. And no secret. Well, he's got to deserve some criticism now when it's due, and it was last night. I absolutely hated the way Luka Doncic played in the first quarter of this game. It was borderline. He was borderline almost manic about getting himself going. And he had a rough night again, and his shooting to start the year, just hasn't been there. And he goes 12 for 25, and most of that was what he did in the fourth quarter. Look, he did make big shots late to get them back in the game, and they almost had a chance to pull this out on a night when they were really outplayed. Yeah, Luka's going to do that kind of thing. I thought the tone he set at the start of the game was brutal. No one was touching the ball but Luka Doncic. And he was missing shot after shot after shot. And the Rockets build this big lead that really is what they kind of held on to the entire game. I thought the game was lost in the first 18 minutes of the game. And then they made the run, but they came up short. I didn't like the way Luka played at all. And I'm sitting there watching it going, it's critical for Klay Thompson to get shots and touches early in the game.
Yeah.
This is a guy now, he's in his 30s. He's had a lot of injuries, right? So he goes through warm-ups. We know he's been streaky the last couple of years with his shot making when he was in Golden State. And I thought some of that was because he was really taking difficult shots still that were maybe a little bit beyond him at this stage of his career because he was Klay Thompson and he was in a Warriors uniform, and this is what everybody expected. And he put a lot of pressure on himself. Well, this is different, right? He's in a different role. If I'm Luka, you can get yours anytime you want. And I've actually patted him on the back some nights and say, hey, man, at least this guy's consistent. Like, he dips his toe in the water first every single night. But when you miss a few early and you got Klay Thompson running around and he's about to come out of the game for his first substitution and he hasn't really touched the ball, that's on you, Luka. That's on you. That's your responsibility. Get the guy shots. Get your bigs a couple of lobs early to get them engaged so they run the floor harder. You and Kyrie are going to do your thing whenever you want. I'm less worried about what you create for Kyrie because he can do his own thing too. I just thought go watch. If you didn't watch it, watch the first quarter of the game and tell me it doesn't look like Luka's got one thing on his mind, and that's scoring. And I just thought it set the tone for their entire team. They're down 13 at the end of the first quarter. Houston was playing great. I thought Jalen Green was great in this game, and he's the electrifying talent, man. He is something else. And Houston played hard, and they kind of just were like, hey, man, you're going to play this way. We're not letting one guy beat us, especially when you're out of rhythm. So I really was disappointed in Luka's approach at the start of the game last night. When you got Klay Thompson out there, get the guy some touches. You're going to need them later. And as it turns out, Klay made some big shots in the fourth quarter, but he only had 13 shots on the night, and I thought most of those came later. I didn't like it, man. I didn't like the approach. It's more than just about you putting the ball in the basket at the start of the game. Some nights that's great, man. You'll have a 16-point first quarter. That's great. But on a night like last night, and certainly the rhythm you're in to start the season, get other guys involved earlier in the game. It makes it easier for your team. And I was having a hard time watching Luka last night. He also got into a lot of the referee stuff again and the body language and talking to the refs in the backcourt after a drive when he didn't get contact. It was like incessant the entire night. So look, we know what Luka's best version is. I thought last night was like Luka's worst version of himself until he made some shots in the fourth quarter. You're like, okay, yeah, that's what this guy does. And they almost pulled it off. But overall, did not like it at all. And I think Luka needs to look in the mirror a little bit, man, and understand his responsibility, particularly now with Klay, but some other guys too. Like get the ball moving a little bit better at the start of the game.
So you and I both like that about Luka, that he's always aggressive out of the games. He doesn't ease into him. He comes out swinging. But I think that I'm curious what you think. Klay Thompson is sort of mercurial. Mercurial? Man, I'm screwing that word up. He's a little finicky in that he needs to get comfortable getting shots going early. And he's a guy that is prone to falling into funks. And I wonder if how much of this is he has to adjust his game, or Luka has to adjust his game now, learning that personality of, hey, Klay is a guy that if I get him hot early, he's going to be hot all game. And I have to put more mentality into that. How much do you think is that? It's personality. And it's like, maybe you could have gotten away with that a little bit more in previous iterations of this team.
Yeah. Listen, man, make the adjustment. Make the adjustment. This is not Josh Green, right? This is not Derrick Jones Jr., who is going to probably get a couple lobs from you throughout the game and maybe a couple drives. And he's out there, to be a stopper. And you don't worry about shooting rhythm with those guys. It's not Dante Exum in that spot. This is Klay Thompson. And if he gets some looks early and he hits some shots in the first 6-8 minutes of the game, there is a good chance he's going to have that night for you consistently throughout. And I think that's an adjustment Luka has to make. And it's a conversation that Jason Kidd should have with him too. And when they watch that film, if Luka watches that back, I don't know how he wouldn't feel that way about himself. Like, man, wow. Like, wow, I was really kind of in my own mix right there. Didn't really, I mean, he had blinders on
Yeah.
for the first 9 minutes of the game. He had blinders on. There was nothing else on his mind, man. I'm shooting the ball every trip. Nobody else is touching it. And I'm going to keep doing it until I get hot. And it just, I don't know, man. I thought, and it's not like this often, but I thought last night, I thought it took a little of the air out of their team, a little bit of air out of the building, and watching him play that way. And then he tried to, be heroic later and make up for all that with big shot making. It was a little too late. And the Rockets get one. But I really felt like the Rockets won this game in the first quarter or the first 18 minutes of the game. And then they basically held on. And I thought the start that they had offensively was directly attributed to how Luka played. And I think there's got to be a more concerted effort to get Klay Thompson and some of the bigs something early, because I think it just sets the tone, knowing that you can shoot the ball whenever you want and you're going to get 20 plus attempts every night. You can get it whenever you want. Nobody can stop you from getting off shots. I don't like lack of ball movement at the start of games. I just think it's a bad tone to set for the night. And I thought last night was him at his worst in that regard. There are some nights it goes in. I mean, he goes 6 for 8 at the start of the game in the first quarter. You don't notice it as much because they're still scoring and winning. That wasn't the case last night. And really, to start the year, I mean, he's shooting 38% on the season. He's shooting 29% from the three. He's not feeling it. And he's going to get there. We know that. He'll hit his stride, but he's not feeling it right now. And I just didn't like the way he played. And I told you, I texted you, I said, I got to mention that today because I give him plenty of love when he deserved it. He didn't deserve it last night.
Well, the other thing I just see, like I said, I only caught the fourth quarter of this game, but on this very show earlier in the week, we talked about one thing we like about the Mavericks is they get 48 minutes of great center play, rim rolling play between Gafford and Lively. Well, they only played 30 minutes combined last night. Foul trouble appears to be a big part of that. And then when I go to the other side of the Houston Rockets, 18 offensive rebounds, 54, I think, points in the paint, dominated the points in the paint battle. And I look at those two things and I go, this is one of the things I like about this Rockets team. I love Amin Thompson and Tari Eason. I love those two guys because they provide you a layer of chaos and just effort. And Tari Eason last night, again, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block shot in 19 minutes. That's a lot of production for 19 minutes. So as we segue to the Rockets, what impressed you about them? And, they're 3-2 right now. They had a little bit of a shaky start, but they've stabilized. What impressed you about them? And in particular, that part of it, the second chance points part and points in the paint.
I think the tone has been set really since Ime Udoka got there, that they don't stop. They're relentless. Yeah. They just keep coming. They've got a lot of versatility amongst these wings, and they just seem to have one after another. They run at you, and they don't always have great shooting nights. They make up for it in other ways. The offensive rebounding. They compete really hard defensively. I said earlier, like Jalen Green, to me, he's one of the most entertaining players in the league. I can and he's come a long way in that regard, because I think early on it was like, entertaining, but wild, right? Just wild, out of control. You didn't necessarily exercise great decision making on the offensive end of the floor. I thought it hurt them, but it's come together to a far greater extent. Like, I expect Jalen Green now to play well, and his athletic ability, burst, and shooting range. He's a problem for a lot of teams, a lot of nights. There's not a great matchup for a guy. He's long, super athletic, incredibly quick to the rim and in the open floor. And then he's got really deep shooting range with a beautiful stroke. It's not like he's just getting them up there. So I thought he, as their best offensive player, gives you a chance in any matchup. He could be the best player on the floor that night because he's that talented. And then they just got guys that they just keep coming at you. They don't really ever stop. They don't back down. They didn't care about Luka's bravado and the way he kind of carries himself, or Kyrie. They didn't care. Yeah. They're coming at you for 48 minutes. And I think they smelled it was a night they could get a game by the way Dallas started. And then if that's the case, you give a team that kind of belief, they're gonna give you all you can handle. And now here they are, they're 3-2. And that's a really, really good early season road win going into Dallas and getting that game.
If they could shoot a little bit better, and Fred
Yeah.
VanVleet has kind of been really up and down to start the year, if they could shoot a little bit better, I'd be way more in on the Rockets because I just love a lot of their players. I've said it for years. I love a lot of their young core pieces. If we move on to the other game, Phoenix Suns beat the Clippers for the second time this year. And the second time, it was a comeback win. The Clippers were up 37-20. The Clippers are a first quarter team this year. They seem to be a first half team, really. They got off to that big lead, but in the third quarter, the Suns just decided to stop missing shots. They shot unbelievably well, 18 of 39 from the three-point line overall, and I think that third quarter was half of those makes, if not more. So what stood out to you about this game and with the Phoenix Suns in general? They're 4-1.
Yeah, and I tell you, I like the vibe around this team. I called their first game against the Clippers.
Yep.
Right, a little over a week ago. I called that game, and I thought going in. Remember, I said I'm going to have a different narrative on the Suns this year, I believe, and I think there's a confidence about them, and it looks like a chemistry that they have that they had a hard time finding last year. Look, I'll give Budenholzer a lot of credit for that. The guy's a very experienced coach. He's a great communicator, and he has done something to galvanize them. And they believe now. They fought, last year they fought down 20 in the first half. They probably go into my turn, your turn mode to try to get back in it, and they lose the game. They didn't really do that. And to your point, in the third quarter, it's one of the most incredible shooting displays you're ever going to see. Adam, they came out of the locker room, and they right off the bat, Zubac gets a 3-point play. They go down 21 right out of the gate. They made their next 15 shots, and it was the first 15 shots to start the quarter. Grayson Allen finally missed one and broke the streak. And I'm talking inside of 3 minutes to go in the quarter, they had not missed a field goal attempt. And they erased the entire 21-point deficit in one quarter. And then you put it in the hands of Devin Booker to close the deal late. And Booker had a little bit of a slow start, quiet start. Another game I called, I couldn't believe how quiet he was just in shot volume. He just wasn't getting looks. And it was kind of surprising to me. Hasn't really gotten out of the gate hot. Well, he showed you what he's capable of last night. Drops 40 on them, 11 for 18, and he hit the big shots. Once they got it to even, then it was like kind of a one-possession game back and forth for a little bit in the fourth quarter, and then Booker was the one that settled the deal and closed matters. So that's probably the first thing that stood out to me was just their resilience, their poise to get back in it, their execution. And by the way, all those shots, this wasn't a series of like Durant making one-legged leaners from 24 with two guys draped on. Every time down the court, they got an open look because the way they attacked, moved the ball, they ran ball screen, got it to the middle, then to the opposite side of the floor, somebody's towing up another three, or they got out in transition off of the Clippers' turnovers, which was a big problem for the Clippers in this game, this carelessness with the ball. So Phoenix resilient, man. They're resilient in this game. They're 4-1. They look happy, and they still have this incredible firepower of these guys that could take over games at an elite level. They did it. And then last thing, Ryan Dunn, man. I mentioned him before the season,
Guy's
too.
Incredible, man.
Really intrigued me going into the year. I asked Budenholzer that night before the opener, has he made your rotation? He's like, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to play. And he already has gotten incredibly comfortable, 9 days into his rookie season. And a guy that they said couldn't shoot, he gives them 4 for 9 from the three, 16 points, 34 minutes as a starter, and elite level defense. So Ryan Dunn is on your rookie watch. If you haven't seen him, people need to be checking him out, man, because he's really mature and he's blending right into a really good team immediately, which is hard to do.
Is he the best shooter in the draft? He was billed as the worst shooter in the draft. He's shooting like 50% or something from three. And it's not a thing that looks like it's a lucky run or this or that. I mean, I'm sure that number will come down, but everything about his shot is confident. He doesn't hesitate. There's no hitch or anything. The movement is great. And to me, I just watch him and I go, this guy is not a dud from the 3-point line. My other note, though, on them, I have 2 more notes. One of them is Grayson Allen looks like he's the size of a refrigerator right now. He's really he was so good last year. This year, he's kind of off to a little bit of a slow start, but weirdly decided to make himself enormous. Do you see that in him? He doesn't look at all like the same player physically.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I was always in the studio so much. Last year, I was able to call some games, and I called one of their games on radio against the Celtics. So I was at the arena, and I don't get to see Grayson Allen too much. And I was right off the bat last year. I was like, man, he's thick. His quads are huge. His shoulders are big. And I was so impressed with him last year with his toughness and his defense and his cutting. And I'm like, this guy's a complete player. I was very impressed with Grayson Allen a year ago. And all the nonsense and the distractions of the stuff he was really self-inflicted wounds he was giving himself with some of the fouls and the tripping and all that. We weren't talking about that anymore. And the guy made over 200 threes last year and gave you a lot of other stuff. I thought he was big then, Adam, like bigger than I could imagine myself ever getting to, like, and playing in the league and being quick enough.
Right.
Now he's out for a while, comes back. He was having some issues with his Achilles and he missed some time in the preseason. I agree with you. He's added even more weight and obviously really struggling to start the year. And it's just rust. And there's no question in my mind, Grayson Allen's going to get this all figured out. He's going to make shots at a really high level. But the fact they're 4-1, he's so important to them. And he hasn't really done much yet because he just can't find his stroke. That's even more concerning for the rest of the league because they're playing really well. And one of their key guys and their top spacer hasn't really gotten himself going yet at all.
Yeah. The last note I have for them is, Jusuf Nurkic was on the floor for the big run in the third quarter last night, but he is off to a rough start himself. And I actually don't even know that it's necessarily anything he's doing. It almost to me seems more of a fit question. And they've been better with Plumlee on than Nurkic for most of the year. Again, last night wasn't the case because of that hot shooting in the third quarter. But I am curious what you think of the Nurkic fit with what they're doing. They're changing their identity. They're spacing a little bit more. Is Nurkic part of their final form, in your opinion?
Probably not, because I think at the end of the day, what's going to happen is, and they didn't have as much faith in their backups last year. So Nurkic played more minutes. I mean, he's not playing a lot of minutes. He's playing 21 minutes a game, for a starting center. And this was a guy that he rebounds at an elite level. If you play Nurkic 25, 30 minutes, he's double-digit rebounds almost every night. His rebounding is at 7 this year because the minutes are down. What is going to happen, though, Adam, they do like these smaller lineups. And now they have Plumlee, who's going to get more time throughout the first 3.5 quarters of the game anyway, just because they like him and they've played well with him. But then they're also going to close the game now differently when they're thinking more defensive minded, when they have leads and getting stops. And that's going to affect Nurkic even more, where it's Plumlee, or they had lineups when I was in that first game of the year I was talking about, where they played Durant at 5. And they went with 4 wings around Kevin Durant. And he's got the kind of length that he can be a problem at the rim for people. So I do think Nurkic is going to have a harder time this year getting consistent minutes to the extent he did last year, and the impact not being as great. The guy still does rebound when he plays, man. 21 minutes and getting almost 8 boards a game. It is really high-level rebounding. So he's going to continue to do that. But I just think they have other options now they didn't have a year ago.
Some bad news from the Orlando Magic front. Orlando Magic, one of my favorite side piece teams in the league this year, but they got a tough break with Paolo Banchero, who fresh off a 50-piece has a injury to his oblique and is out 4 to 6 weeks. They said they'll reevaluate in 4 or 5 weeks, I think they said. But that's a long time for a team that was establishing themselves a little bit here as a team that was kind of on the rise. But I'm curious, Legs, because as much as I love that team, they have some pieces that I still wonder how well they fit. And you look at their starting lineup has actually had a negative net rating, oddly enough. It's all their other lineup combinations that you get. It's obviously a bad thing because Banchero was playing unbelievable. But if there's something positive that comes out of this, I was thinking Franz Wagner is off to a bit of a, whatever start. I feel like he has an opportunity to reestablish himself as the number one guy and maybe find his rhythm in a way that could serve them in the long term when he comes back. So I'm putting this positive spin on an injury here, on a negative thing. But as much as this is rough for them, I feel like that piece could be positive for him. Yeah,
look, it's interesting. I agree with you. It's interesting because we loved their versatility last year. They were the only team in the league whose top 2 scorers were 6'10" and up.
Yeah.
And it was different, right? These 2 big, long forwards that very versatile the way they play together. Banchero clearly, he established himself as a different level player than Wagner. I mean, Banchero's the real deal. This is a star in this league. He's already had a 50-point game here in the beginning of this season. And he's got great numbers here at the start. So he's now separated himself where he's clearly the top of the food chain, top dog on this team. But then they've got other guys, and some of these guys have already stepped up. I'm looking at Wagner's numbers, and I haven't seen a complete game of them yet. I've watched bits and pieces. I look at the numbers, I go 17 points a game. You might think I must be struggling to shoot. He's shooting 51%. He's only getting 12 shots a night. Now that's going to change now. So to your point, this is going to now, it's an opportunity. Franz Wagner's now going to get 18 to 20 shots a night for the foreseeable future. And let's see what he does with that. Suggs has already taken a step forward.
He's incredible.
more consistent scorer, and we talk about this might be the best perimeter defender in the NBA on
He's
the
up
ball
there.
defense, in the way that he pressures guards and fights over screens. It's really incredible. But he's also giving you 17 a night on the other end now. So he's both end of the floor player now, much more consistent. They've got other young pieces we like. I'm very curious to see what happens with this team. This is a bad injury. So 4 to 6 just to be reevaluated. Who knows how long he's actually going to be out? What happens to the Orlando Magic without Paolo Banchero? We're about to find out here, because I think it's going to be difficult for them unless Wagner has another gear that he hasn't shown us yet. Because I don't think I'm comfortable with like what his top ceiling is. Let's see. Maybe he surprises us. You know, he averages 23, 24, 25 points a game over this stretch. When Banchero's out, he will have jumped a notch and climbed a rung in that ladder. In my mind, I'm not sure he can do it. I'm going to be watching him carefully.
His numbers are deflated a little bit. I think he played 2 games through sickness and ended up coming out of the game halfway through him. So he has some of his minutes have been a little bit lower, but nonetheless, I'm worried about my Magic because they are such a fun team to watch. And that could be an injury that even if you come back in 4 to 5 weeks, what kind of shape are you in? That's the kind of injury you can't really, stay in shape with. So I think that's a really tough blow for the Magic. And then Victor Wembanyama last night had a 5x5. Following up a horrible game, the one you called on Wednesday, where he was really a non-factor in that one. But last night, at least, he had a bounce back against the Jazz, 25 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 blocks, 5 steals. So you got an up-close look at him. What stood out to you when you were watching him up close for the very first time?
Well, I will say the very first thing that you notice when you get to the arena and you go out there and guys start coming out to warm up, you can't imagine how big this guy is. It's hard to even describe how big he is. And then
Chet Holmgren looked like normal sized. Chet Holmgren, who always looks enormous, he made Chet look small. It was so weird.
So when I saw Bobo like in person for the first time, like courtside, I was like, my goodness. And there's no comparison between how big, and you're only talking a couple of inches, but It looks like he's a half a foot taller. And so that's the first thing you're just like, oh my goodness. And then you watch him work out and he's doing step back threes and he's doing catch and shoot threes and his stroke is just so beautiful and his hands are so big. And I'm like, man, what does that even feel like having a ball in his hand? And he's able to shoot it with perfect rotation. So the skill and the size combination, and then the game started. I was obviously super excited. And Chet immediately, first trip for the Spurs, Chet makes one of the defensive plays of the year. The lob he broke up, that was going to be the very first possession and first dunk for Wembanyama to start the night. The ground that Chet Holmgren covered to come from the weak side to deflect that lob, crowd reacts to it, and then the ball ends up right under the rim. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Harrison Barnes. I don't remember who ended up with the ball right under the rim. They go to lay it in after Chet stopped the lob. Chet goes up, meets that one at the front of the rim and blocks it.
Yeah.
Crowd goes crazy. So we're 30 seconds into the game, and Chet Holmgren has these 2 amazing back-to-back defensive plays. And I was like, man, this is going to be fun. And it was for Chet and the Thunder, because Victor Wembanyama, like, quiet doesn't even begin to describe his night. I mean, and I'm sitting there with my play-by-play partner, Dave Pash, and we're kind of looking at each other like during breaks, like, what's going on? So it was a combination of things, Adam. Part of it was just him. Not in the mindset that I want to dominate and I want to go at this guy. And that rivalry that we built up, like Chet, it looked like he had an edge to him. And it meant something to him. The way he was going at him and guarding him out on the floor. I didn't feel like Victor approached it that way. So that's first. It's him. Mentally, I did not think was in a really super aggressive place. I also blame the play construction. I did not see much at all that was beneficial to Victor Wembanyama and where he was catching the ball. I watched a lot of film on them before the game. He's been dominating in the Dirk Nowitzki ISO area of the floor, the elbows top of the key, and they get like flat off of that. And he's really tough when he has it there because he can be dunking it in one dribble, or he can shoot over the top in the mid-range because he's so big, right? And I don't recall him getting the ball in that area of the floor the entire game. So some of it's him. Some of it, I think, was his teammates' lack of shooting. They couldn't take pressure off of him. He was swarmed. I described it like when you put food in a fish tank. The way the fish swarmed to it, that's what Oklahoma City looked like around Victor Wembanyama. Yeah. Every time you fed him the ball, it was like, whoo. And he was being guarded by smaller guys much of the game. And Oklahoma City's the best defensive team in the league right now. They're the fastest. They've got the most versatility out there. And they are a team that is super committed to not let you get hung out to dry individually. So give them credit. Look, it's a wrong team maybe for Victor to play against with all of that defensive speed and the number of guys they do it with. Combination of those three things added up to, I did not see the real Victor Wembanyama that night. I'm looking forward to my next Spurs game. And of course, he comes back the next night, like you said last night. Great game against the Jazz, a plus 43 in the game, which is like impossible to do. And I'm sorry I didn't get to see that out of him because I was really looking forward to it. I'm not certainly making any conclusions on it, but he was not involved in that game at all. So I'll have to wait till the next time I see him, hopefully, to really get my true taste of what Victor Wembanyama can do up close.
What's interesting to me about Oklahoma City with regards to Victor Wembanyama is I think he struggles the most with the strong, sturdy guards. And you watch him, after this last game, Greg Popovich was asked about him being on the perimeter a lot, and he said, that's where I want him. I kind of view him as more of a perimeter player than outside, which I don't necessarily love. But you see that he's not good at backing people down. He's not good at using even spin moves and his wide base. Just guys steal the ball from him. And Oklahoma City has so many guys that can get their leverage into him and are so aggressive. Caruso is one of those guys that just like, if you're not really solid in how you back a guy down, he's going to make life hell for you. And so I think that matchup might have exposed one part of his game that actually is weak. And to be honest with you, offensively, I'm not sure how much I'm buying Wemby as this like hub of a championship caliber offense. But I absolutely buy him as the hub of a defense. I mean, they have right now are leading the league in opponent points in the paint. And it's not because of the other guys on the roster. It's because of him. And that's the one thing that he does at a really high level is he does cover an enormous amount of ground. And you see, more so than any other player, guys dribble into the paint, think they have an opening, and they're just the whole time they're thinking, can I get this over him? Like, am I clear here? And that's the one thing he does. So his baseline is so high just defensively what he does.
Yeah, and look, and I could tell you sitting there, it's one thing you do notice, like when he's off the floor, visually what you're looking at in the paint is it's a completely different look.
Yeah.
Same thing actually with Oklahoma City and Chet, to be honest with you, when they went small a couple of times. Yeah, and it's incredible how different it looks to guards that are looking in there thinking about driving as opposed to Wembanyama and Chet being on the court. I agree with what you said about defense. I do think, and I said this a while back about Lillard, and I said it on the air to close the game. We just zoomed in on Victor. He's sitting on the bench. He kind of looking a little bit, dejected. Rough night for them. And I said, the lesson out of this, Victor, is if you want to be one of the best players in the league one day, you see how hard this is. This league is hard to do it every night. And he didn't take a shot in the second half of this game. He didn't have a field goal attempt in the second half of a game. It's incredible. You're right. First half, few times they tried to force it into him, like trying to get a guy on his back. And one time, actually, it was either AJ Mitchell or Wiggins pulled the chair out from under him. He almost got hurt because he just lost his balance and fell. And that's not who he is. He's just not but when he got rolling in the second half of last season, he was more likely to hold his ground enough where he could catch it at least. And then he would do something crazy out of it, like a quick spin and he'd dunk on you before you knew he was at the rim. Or he started shooting turnaround jumpers, 15, 18 feet on the baseline. He was making that shot pretty consistently. He never even got to that point in this game. The ball just never reached him in a place where he felt comfortable doing anything offensively that looked like it was going to be on balance or productive. And so rough night, man, no doubt about it. And somehow, some way, they were in the game in the fourth quarter, like at least within striking distance. They got it to 8. It didn't feel like 8, and you never thought they were going to come all the way back and win the game. But somehow they were in the game, and mainly because Oklahoma City had a really rough three-point shooting, and they finally caught fire. Strung a bunch together. Shea wasn't very good in this game offensively by his standards. So San Antonio hung around, and I thought, okay, well, maybe Victor will be great here at the end and help them get this thing really close, and never touched the ball again. And Pop finally he was off the court with about 6-7 minutes left in the game. He never went back in.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does it. I want to look at the weekend slate, though, because this is a really good weekend of basketball. So I just wanted to get your quick thoughts here on a couple games. Number one, my Nuggets are in Minnesota tonight for a rematch of their 7-game series last year, Denver at Minnesota. Denver's off to a rough start. Minnesota's starting to stabilize a little bit here, but both teams have a lot of questions. But here's my thing tonight, Legs. I think Denver gets killed tonight. And the reason is I think the word is out on Denver that they really struggle with on-ball pressure because they don't have a lot of ball handlers on their roster. And I'm really curious tonight to see how Denver handles that because Minnesota knows better than anyone. Get into Jamal Murray's space and you're going to disrupt him, and they're going to force to have Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, Russell Westbrook, other guys bring the ball up. And that to me is what I'm most interested tonight in that Nuggets game.
Well, listen, that they certainly employed that against them in the playoffs last year. We saw that, and Jamal Murray wasn't 100% at that time, and that played into that a little bit. You saw what they were capable of with that kind of pressure. So I don't know about getting killed. I think that's going to be a tough game to win for Denver. I don't know that Minnesota is like got where they need to be offensively yet. To be able to, like, you would expect them to blow them out. I mean, I could see them winning the game and maybe it's an 8-10 point game, late. I could see that, but look, they don't really blow out.
Yeah. They don't have scores.
They still have Jokic, man. So am I going to be shocked Denver goes in there, wins that game and Jokic has some ridiculous stat line? Of course not. Very capable doing it, but I agree that could be tough. And that's, I guess, looking at the slate, probably the game of the night that we have in the league is going to be that one.
I'm also excited tomorrow for Grizzlies at 76ers. I just enjoy watching the Grizzlies. You have Tyrese Maxey versus Ja Morant. That's going to be a fun, fast-paced guard matchup there. We've also got Warriors at Rockets. That will be a really fun one. Cavs at Bucks. I mean, the Bucks are hanging by a thread. And then Thunder at Clippers is also a really fun one. It's always fun when Shea goes back to the Clippers. Any of those stand out to you?
Yeah, I think I just turned a page. Who was the Houston game again?
Houston is Warriors at Houston.
Houston Warriors. That's really fun. That's the one I'm looking at because, man, what a great start for Golden State. And they've been fun, man. And they are getting it up and down their roster, and they haven't really gotten it from Kuminga to the extent that we were wondering. Like, he took a big leap last year, and now Clay's gone. So you're thinking, okay, he moves up even more. In terms of just focus offensively, he hasn't really been great yet, and they're still 4-1. And I just gave Houston a lot of compliments, man, on how they're ready and relentless. I think that has the makings of being a great, great game. Maybe could end up being the best game of the weekend.
It very well could be. This was a great week of shows, Legs. We covered a lot of different teams, a lot of ground. If you haven't checked out our channel, yesterday I did a little mini pod, like a little 20-minute pod with Mark Stein. That was really good. He gave some insight behind the scenes. And also we have some short videos up, and we also have a Nikola Jokic video up. There's a thing Yoke does, Legs, where he shoots his jump hooks off of his right leg. Nobody else in the league does this. Over the last 5 years, there's 2 or 3 guys that have taken about 15 of them. Yoke's taken over 400 of these jump hooks off of his right leg. It's insane balance, and it was really cool. So I did a video on that, but I thought you might find that interesting as well.
Very, because I know it's an incredibly awkward thing to do, to do opposite foot jumping. I will say more and more guys in general incorporate that on some of their drives, like guards. You see more of it than you ever used to see it. Jumping off the, same foot, same hand. You didn't see that a lot. And now more and more guys
does that a lot.
Yeah, it's another way to get a shot up quicker sometimes, up off the glass. But to shoot the hook shot the way that he does like that, it is unusual. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, which you broke down.
He also does it off of cuts. You're right. Tyrese Maxey, Luka Doncic, right foot, right-handed drives. Very common. There's a handful of players that do that. But on post-ups, on step backs, on side steps, and on cuts where you catch the ball on the run and jump right hand, right foot, it's so abnormal. And Jokic has somehow worked that into his arsenal. So there's a really cool video up on our channel on that. I hope you guys enjoy. We're off for the weekend, but we're back on Monday, everybody. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help us grow the channel. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you think of the show. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Silly like the mayor.